Through the clouds, faster catch us from falling close to the ground. Perish or try to fight it, parachute now. Last chance, the final moment, parachute down and deliver us to the ground. I wanna pull the string, on and on, I feel the speed. Too far to break from pressure, too much to bend the speed.
Welcome everyone to episode 41 of the Chris Perish podcast. My name is Chris Perish. You will see that I am not alone. I am with my beautiful partners to my left and right, Rogue Energy and Turnbuckle Studios. That's right. If you want to check out all the great content that is Turnbuckle Studios, make sure that you check out Turnbuckle Studios live on all their platforms. But if you want to be a part of the Turnbuckle Appreciation Program, make sure you're checking out that link below, affiliationprogram.my.canva.site. Make sure that you check out rogueenergy.com, where you can check out the beautiful collection of flavors that they have. My favorite of this week? You know what? I always say blue raspberry, right? But I'm not predictable. I'm going to go with the strawberry kiwi. That's right. Check out strawberry kiwi. But if you do want to try that blue raspberry, it is now available in a sample size for you. So that does all of what we call the housekeeping duties out of the way. Let's get ready to episode 41, where we got a good chunk of stuff to talk about. One of the stuff I want to talk about is the heavy rumors that not only are we getting a lot of legend contracts, nostalgia contracts in WWE, but you know what? We're actually getting some free agent news. And that is that the Motor City Machine Guns are heavily reported to be WWE bound. They are expected to join the NXT brand and are expected to debut this Tuesday on the CW. Now that is a heavy rumor. It is not just something that I've read on the internet. There are sources that claim that up, but let's play devil's advocate and let's assume that this is true. Where do we see the Motor City Machine Guns in Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley debut? Is it flat out within the tag team championship picture? Do we see maybe them go up against other competitors? Like maybe we see something along the lines of the Dempsey and his crew, the no quarter catch crew. Like, do we see something like that where maybe we see some odds? Do we see maybe the Motor City Machine Guns backing up Wes Lee against the Rascals? Who knows? All I know is that the Motor City Machine Guns, when it comes to the tag team division, is a huge get for the WWE. And let's just throw no stones. The single fact that they chose WWE over an AEW, I think, shows a lot of where guys are in their careers, but also what they view WWE can do for them right now, opposed to AEW. Now, that's not bashing one company. That's just saying, look at the conglomerate that WWE is right now. Look at what they're able to provide you, and just look outside the bubble and say, hey, can I get anything like this anywhere else? And the answer is no. The answer is just flat out no. When you look at the platform WWE can get, especially now with NXT going town to town, they are touring. They're now live on CW television. And they're going to be a part of the USA moving forward. Like, they have a television deal that is absolutely just guaranteed for views, for just to be lined up in good shape. They know the platform is something that benefits them, not just them benefiting the platform. And again, that's not bashing an AEW. That's not even bashing a TNA. That's just saying, okay, look, here's an opportunity here that honestly, when compared to an opportunity somewhere else, this is just better. And given where they are in their careers, they probably want financial security. And I don't think that was an issue with either company. But I do think when you look at financial security, when you look at opportunity, when you look at where you could go from just an opportunity standpoint, maybe they do want to work at the performance center and help the new crop of talent. Maybe they do want to just kind of give back in like an agent role or something like that. The opportunities do provide themselves more so in WWE than they do AEW in that capacity. So I do not blame the Motor City Machine Guns for the choice. In fact, good for them. I know we've seen Alex Shelley before in NXT as he did some work prior, especially during the Time Splitters. But seeing the Motor City Machine Guns, who have appeared in AEW, are obviously just legends in the total nonstop action and the Impact world. We've seen them in Ring of Honor, and we've seen them over in Japan. They're kind of completing that journey that they have now and establishing their kind of legacy as one of the better tag teams of our current era, or the era that we seem to have finished. Or not really finished, but like they're the last of its kind. And I think when you look at them and compare them to teams like DIY or even like the Young Bucks, teams that have gone and worked elsewhere and been around the block, especially in the independent circuits and the Japanese market like that, there's nothing left for them to accomplish other than the WWE. Now, could they have gone to AEW and worked in that tag division? Yes, 100% they could have. But they also could have been regulated to working Ring of Honor. And I don't know if that's necessarily something they wanted to do. It seems like there's opportunities where you can go Raw, SmackDown, NXT. There are a multiple amount of tag titles for them to go after. And then you look at the working relationship with TNA right now, and perhaps that's something that they could help open the bridge towards. And let's face it, I think their hearts still are in TNA, but I do believe now that they are fully invested in the next step. And it sounds like the next step is NXT. It is WWE. And the Motor City Machine Guns look to be shooting their way into the revolution that reports in sports entertainment. Now, with all that being said, I'm very curious to see Chris Sabin in WWE. This would be his first real run in WWE, and one could argue that it's maybe a little too late, but at the same time, the added phrase is better late than never, and I do think it's going to be just a refresher for Chris Sabin, and maybe it just revitalizes his career just a little bit, because you did see him kind of go from a state of, I don't want to say he was comfortable in TNA, but you definitely saw near the end that he definitely had a chip on his shoulder, and I can only imagine that the duo, but him specifically as someone who did climb the mountain, who was a world champion first, he does have a chip on his shoulder. He does want to make sure that, they live up to the bill in this, and I hope they do, and I don't discount that they won't. So good for Motor City Machine Guns if true, good for WWE if true, and I think this is something to look forward to, because I did mention teams like DIY, Nathan Frazier, and Axiom, who I do believe they're going to work with. Other teams in NXT like Gallows and Anderson, I think that's very interesting to me. I think their dynamic could be very fun. You also have Gallus down there, and then that's going to be intriguing. And then you also have Tony D'Angelo and his family, like Luca Cristofino and Stax. Like, could that be something we see that unexpected? Anofi and Blade, who I think are a team that, when given time, they could be a lot of fun to watch. And then we also have seen teams be sprinkled down in NXT, teams like the Street Profits, teams like Tongaloa and Tamatonga. We've seen multiple amount of tag teams kind of go down, Alpha Academy being another one. So I think there's more than enough opportunities right there for both Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin to really, really make an impact in NXT. Let me know your thoughts. I will have that as a question in the podcast or the Spotify link. Pretty much, what titles do you think Motor City Machine Guns achieve first in the WWE? And I'll put NXT tag, World tag, or the WWE tag, which obviously the WWE tag, SmackDown, the World tag, or Raw NXT tag, obviously NXT. Speaking of Monday Night Raw, we heard this past week that Monday Night Raw is scheduled to go back to 2 hours for the remainder of the year before it launches onto Netflix. We have been so accustomed to 3 hours, and it was heavily met with criticism when it started because it was the same length of a pay-per-view, which is now known as a PLE. We've seen Monday Night Raw be a flagship for WWE, and at one point, we thought Monday Night Raw was too long and unbearable to watch until recent years, where now Monday Night Raw feels like we're watching a cinematic movie. And it's just been absolutely amazing to watch. And a lot has to do with the creative direction that's changed, the storytelling that is now a part of the WWE, given time to matches, given patience with feuds and promos. Watching Monday Night Raw is no longer a struggle for 3 hours. In fact, the 3 hours fly by, and that's a sign of a great show. I'm now a little worried about what we're going to have with 2 hours. Are we not going to get enough? Are we going to get a slow play for a lot of the broadcast? Are they going to focus in on just a few things opposed to doing so much with the third hour? Because when you really break down a 3 hour Raw right now, they get a lot accomplished, they being the WWE. Now with 2 hours, you're subtracting that 1 hour, and you're subtracting a lot from your daily dose on Monday Night Raw. So will we see less people on Raw? Will we see less? I mean, obviously we're going to see less. We have 2 hours opposed to 3. But from a directional standpoint, from how do we get from point A to B, which is one show to the next, one PLE to another, I do feel like they're going to focus in on those particular feuds just for at least a couple months. And then when obviously it comes back onto Netflix, expect everything to be guns blazing. The one thing I do enjoy is that December is a month where usually there's not a PLE anymore. There is that Christmas break that we know is, we usually get a year in a review episode at some point. We definitely don't get a heavy schedule in, kind of the latter November to December aspect. So we're not looking at a very long time here. I mean, it is now September 15th. In 2 months, it's the midway point of November. So we're looking at really 3.5 months, if that. So 100 days, we'll say. Because when we really look at, we're looking at, just a little over 100 days up until January 1 with Netflix coming in. So with 100 days, you divide it by 7, and you want quick math, you're getting maybe 12, 13, maybe 14, push it 15 episodes. Let's go with 14 episodes, if that. So for the next 14 episodes, what or how is WWE Raw going to adapt to in the 2 hour mark? Now, I do believe we're going to be left wanting more every week, which I think is going to be a good thing, because that's kind of the whole point of a wrestling show, right? Unless you have a big go home show like an end all be all, like a WrestleMania, you really don't. You don't really want to have everything end, right? Like you kind of want to have that openness to, come back, especially for television broadcasts. You always want to give a reason to why you tune in next week or the next time WWE is even on, whether it be SmackDown, whether it be NXT, whether it be a PLE on a Saturday or a Sunday, or again, the next week's episode of Monday Night Raw. So it's going to be very intriguing. It's going to be very, very, very intriguing on which titles they decide to particularly focus on, what feud they focus on. Are we going to see a specific amount of talent kind of shine in these next 3 months that maybe we didn't expect? Somebody like maybe a Chad Gable of this world. Maybe we see Dominic Mysterio just go and dial in his match count. Maybe we see Braun Breaker just become that workhorse. And maybe we see Gunther become more of that scarce champion where he only fights when, he has to defend the title, as I think he kind of should, to be quite honest. But 2 hours for the remainder of the year. How do we feel about that? Let us know. Let me know as we kind of gear towards a small change. Now, I do believe Raw is going to go back closer to the 3, if not 3 hours on Netflix. So I don't think there's to worry, unless Raw really absolutely just blows up on the 2 hour thing. But I can't see that. I just can't see that. Not to mention, I think also a smart kind of play by WWE, because you're kind of taking that third hour and you're saying, we completely realize that when competing against another juggernaut like the NFL on Mondays, we could be losing an audience on that final hour. So by removing it, you're not exactly in the range of getting hit with that attack, so to speak. You are able to comfortably get out and do your 2 hour window really before, that Monday night game goes. And I think that is something that's going to help benefit the ratings for WWE for that short amount of time. And what's going to be very intriguing is that you might actually see some more translation from the WWE to maybe the NFL. We do see a lot of crossover as it is in the WWE. So I'm kind of curious if we're going to see a little bit of that carry on, now that there is that chance that if you are a fan of both pro wrestling and NFL, like myself, obviously, you now have an opportunity to kind of enjoy both instead of not temporary, but getting a smaller sample size or just a smaller size of enjoyment on one. So yeah, it's going to be very intriguing to me on just how the perception of a 2 hour Raw goes, because we're used to so much as a fan. We're used to getting so much content on Monday nights. How are we going to adapt back to 2 hours for this amount of time? And that to me is going to be very, very intriguing, because nowadays I do not have a negative approach when it comes to the WWE. A lot of people say that, you're biased as a WWE fan. Well, you know what? Watch the product and you tell me if it's biased or if it's just, I just get nothing but consistent, a consistent product every single time I watch it. The good outweighs the bad by a long shot now. And at one point, it was not like that at the beginning point of the 3 hour Raw. It was not like that. But that's where we are now. Where we are now also is Def Rebel is packing up their studio equipment and they're moving on out, as reports say that WWE plans to not extend the contracts to Def Rebel. In fact, to look outside and use mainstream artists for their music. Further much, I can honestly see that we might not be in a day where we have one or a group or a duo necessarily be the only source of making music for everyone, making themes for the superstars, making themes for the PLEs, the television shows, like live events, the graphics. Like when we see the this week in WWE, like all that stuff. Obviously, there's music. Chances are that was made by the music makers of WWE. So I know there's a lot of criticism with Def Rebel. I personally do enjoy this decision because I do think it's a step in the direction that they need to. We've been seeing a lot of good things happen that help make the superstar a bigger deal, a more important deal, just better as a presentational standpoint. And when we look at pro wrestling and we look at the entrance, yeah, the theme song, the walkout song, the entrance song definitely has a lot of that. When you hear gong, you think of The Undertaker. When you hear glass breaking, you think of Stone Cold Steve Austin. When you hear time to play the game, you think of Triple H. And you do have these points of connection when you hear certain beats, certain things, and that makes it everything special when you're able to interact or just interact at a show, or you're able to interact with your buddies, anyway over a song. It becomes better, it becomes more iconic because it's emotionally connecting with you, and that's the whole point of pro wrestling in a nutshell, right? Like it's supposed to connect with you in some form, but when it does it from an emotional standpoint and you have fun doing the whoa when Cody Rhodes comes out, or you do the yeet with Jey Uso, you put up the ones for Roman Reigns, like just those ways of connecting and doing something invokes you, and it connects you to not just the song but that superstar as well, and the music has a great way of connecting to that. And the problem with the Def Rebel songs is not a lot of them felt unique. I mean, a lot of people talk about how amazing Jim Johnson is, and I'm fully one of them. I do believe he should be in the Hall of Fame. 2, he needs to I would love to see them hire him and allow him to run a music division in WWE, which, if people like Ron, the Truth Killings, who does have a musical background, who does put out music, we've seen other superstars in the past, like Samantha Urban is also a singer. Like if they want to record stuff or do their own stuff, they could do it within the realm of the WWE music. Now we've seen WWE studios in the past kind of tackle the acting world, the Hollywood aspect, the film industry, but why not have something that attacks the musical aspect? You can really do wonders with a Spotify, a YouTube Music, wherever those platforms are. So, right after you check out the Chris Perish podcast live on Spotify, well, just on Spotify, I guess not live. You'd also be able to check out, which I know you see a lot of WWE theme songs, entrance music on there, but now if there's like something there, it's like something bigger there, it's going to be a lot more intriguing and a lot more fun to watch. Like, especially, I don't know how many people saw the Jim Johnson behind the music, but he'll take a deep dive back to how he would make certain people's entrance themes. And I remember one being The Rock, one being Chris Jericho. And he just talks about how he made these songs. And it was just super cool because he does explain to why it fits the character. And to me, that it was so unique, and it just made those more iconic. And I think that's why a lot of people hold a guy like Jim Johnson in such high regard, because of the work he did. And I do believe that Def Rebel kind of were the opposite of that. You know, they didn't make anything that was too memorable, too iconic. And because of that, their reputation doesn't hold the same weight as a Jim Johnson. And I think because of that, we also look at the CFOs in a higher thing now. And the CFOs did do a better job. They didn't do the best job, but they easily did not do the worst. As they gave us a lot of bangers, especially with the NXT world. I mean, there's a lot of great NXT songs. I mean, I still watch Pete Dunne on my screen, and I just want him to go back to that original Bruiserweight theme. I want Shayna Baszler to go back to her original NXT theme. So it'll be quite amazing. But also, now that we have other people doing music, you know, how do we see replacements for, you know, if somebody like Becky Lynch comes back to the WWE, does her theme song change? Because I just can't see it change. Do we see somebody like Randy Orton change? Because we've heard not just the voices, but the rumors that he's been asking for a new song, B turned down a new version of Voices before his return. So is he in the market for, you know, a new theme song? Do we see something different for somebody like Kevin Owens, who, you know, has had that theme song for the entire time in his WWE? So same with a multiple amount of people. Like now, I know Sami Zayn had a second one when he was heel, and he's gone back to the one that we currently know now and love. But do we see something different there? So it'll be very intriguing, very interesting, and very eye-opening to see what they do, especially with the mainstream artists. Yeah, and we've seen just an example of that with SmackDown. New logo, which let me know your thoughts. I think the logo's great. I'm very curious to see kind of how they evolve in that logo, because when you see a change of a logo, and they, you know, put the logo on the microphones, they have, you know, the graphics, they tend to always be simple right away, and then over time they become a little bit more evolved, I guess. It's kind of so it'll be very interesting, because I love kind of like that, how they have the S and Smack and the D and Down kind of integrated with each other. I think that's really cool, and I think that the SmackDown logos really has, you know, kept up with the history of that logo, and they've kind of kept with the history of what SmackDown looks like in terms of how the logo has defined the product, and it's given it a modern twist. Now, how does this revolve back to Def Rebel? Well, Def Rebel did not make the song, so I know I've gone online just to see kind of what the perception is. A lot of people love it. A lot of people don't like it. I think this is really all depending on your view of music and how you perceive it. Just personal taste. I'm going to allow it to kind of grow, but right away, it's definitely not a song I'm going to go back and listen to. It's not a personal song choice of mine, but how does it translate to SmackDown moving forward? Does it actually take that step of being the sound of SmackDown? So that to me takes time. That to me takes more than just, you know, one hear So I'm going to allow that to kind of grow on me before I really make any judgment, because, I mean, let it cook is kind of the thing, right? We got to just let it cook nowadays. We just got to take a step back and see how it plays out. That open approach. So, yeah, I know. Very, very much going to be glued to what WWE does next on this front, because I am a giant geek when it comes to the music. I love listening to theme songs, but the problem is with Def Rebel, and you guys can do this too. Just go on Spotify and play a random amount of themes, and don't look at your phone, but just listen to it and see if you can guess. A lot of them you can, but a lot of them you can't. But at the same time, it's not like Def Rebel was all bad, because we talked about eating when you hear Jey Uso's theme. That's a pretty good fitting theme for Jey Uso. And it definitely stems back from an older theme, and it's almost like an evolution from that Usos theme when they were together. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Another thing I thought would be fun was kind of listening to you and predicting all the WWE champions and who I think beats them. Now, I'm not going to give you scenarios per se, and I think some of them could be quite obvious, but I did write down all the champions on Raw, on SmackDown, on NXT, and I'm just going to keep that for right now. And then next week, I'll target who I think takes the titles off AEW, and I'll kind of see how close I get. So let's kind of have some fun. I'm going to start off with Cody Rhodes' Universal WWE Championship. I have Randy Orton taking the title off him. Will it be true? Let's find out. I have Carmelo Hayes dethroning LA Knight for the U.S. Championship. I have Jade Cargill dethroning Nia Jax for the WWE SmackDown's Women's Champion. I have the Pure Fusion Collective defeating Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair for the Women's Tag Team titles. I do think it's going to be Shayna and Zoe that do it. I have DIY defeating Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga for the WWE Tag Team Championships. I have Bronson Reed defeating Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship. I have Rhea Ripley beating Liv Morgan for the Women's Championship, the World Women's Championship, and I do think that's going to happen at Bad Blood. Based on how the story is with the Judgment Day, we're seeing Jey Uso get involved. I do feel we could see a reunion. I'm going to throw for a wild card the Usos defeating Finn Balor and JD McDonough for the World Tag Team Championships. And I had a tough one with Gunther, because I don't think somebody like Ilya Dragunov is going to be shot up to the main title. I don't think Sami Zayn's going to win it. I don't think Drew McIntyre and and Gunther, or Damian Priest and Gunther, is going to be something that we get right away. So logically, I have one person that kind of fits the bill, unless we're going something completely unexpected. But as it stands, I have CM Punk beating Gunther. Let's have everyone enjoy that one. For the Speed Championships, I'm predicting Naomi becomes the inaugural Speed Champion, and I have Pete Dunne defeating Andrade for the Men's Speed Championship. For NXT, no, I'm not counting the Heritage Cup. I'm just counting championship titles. I have Tony D'Angelo defeating Obafemi for the Men's North American title. I have Lola Vice beating Kalani Jordan for the Women's North American Championship. I have Julia defeating Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's title. And I have the Motor City Machine Guns defeating Nathan Frazier and Axiom for the tag team titles. And who beats Ethan Page for the NXT title? My prediction is Obafemi. I do think Obafemi is going to go very much from the NXT title to the NXT title, North American title to the NXT title. Yeah. In fact, I do think he might even challenge Ethan Page for this title while still being North American champion. And I think that kind of allows Ethan Page to cost Obafemi the North American title only for All Ego to get an ego check from Obafemi. And I think that'd be very intriguing. And then as soon as Obafemi wins the title, that is when I predict we will see Moose in NXT. And we will get a Moose Obafemi stare down. And I think that's kind of how they go there. And then we can go to something down the road with more NXT TNA crossover. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is not only who I think beats everyone in WWE for championships. Talked about just about everything. Did break the news on Friday that Armando Estrada has signed a Legends deal, nostalgic deal with WWE. I posed a question to Chris Best last night. What happens if he becomes Solo's wise man? What would people think of the man that once managed the late, great Umaga, is now the wise man, to someone who got a lot of Umaga comparisons in Solo Sikoa? Someone who else would have a lot of Umaga comparisons, that's Jacob Fatu. He would be Jacob Fatu's wise man as well. I think it'd be very intriguing. You can bring Armando Estrada into the fold there. And now you can bring back Paul Heyman. And you have somebody that Paul Heyman can really feud with himself. Because Paul Heyman's not going to go toe-to-toe with Solo Sikoa or Jacob Fatu or Tama Tonga or Tonga Loa. That's just not going to happen. But I could see Paul Heyman punching Armando Estrada to a huge reaction. You want to beat me? You can't beat me. I'm too extreme for you. Could be intriguing. Yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the word of the show, right? Intriguing. But, I mean, we're in the state of excited to see what's next on a lot of fronts. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. It's exciting. It's really exciting right now to be a fan of this company that is WWE and to see kind of what they're doing. I even crossed off on one of my predictions because the one woman's name that I'm like, oh, she's probably going to do something of stature and that's Stephanie Vacker. I'm like, what does she do? And here's the thing. Do we think she even goes straight to NXT, or do we think she can do something on a Raw or SmackDown? Because this kind of popped in my head, because I'm in the position where I don't know if we really need to do a men's and a woman's War Games. But with the inclusion of Rhea Ripley in this storyline, and we have Liv Morgan, could we not see women integrated into a War Games match with the men? And when you think about this, we can have somebody like Liv Morgan bring back Raquel Rodriguez, or even a Stephanie Vacker. But I'm going to stick with Raquel Rodriguez, former tag partners, right? To kind of be her muscle to go up against Rhea. And now you could do something in War Games where you kind of have the 5 in Dom, Finn, JD, Liv. You could do Carlito, but I think at this time, let's put in Raquel Rodriguez. Okay, who do you have on the other side? Okay, well, you have Damian Priest. Well, you got Rhea Ripley. You could have Jey Uso. But I kind of think maybe go away from Jey. But you can have people come back to help them out. Like, I think somebody that you can bring back and then you could put right there with them would be a Charlotte Flair. If she was to come back to help Rhea, given their history together, there's a lot of reasons to why it makes sense that they could team and join forces. Charlotte could be positioned to work alongside somebody who is very popular to the fans, and therefore that popularity will carry over and people will see Charlotte in a good light instead of just being, booed. Just because, we've seen enough Charlotte, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense for that. And then now we could have Raquel and Charlotte. That would be a fresh match. We could get Liv versus Charlotte while we do Raquel versus Rhea. Just trying to manifest a way where you can have an inclusion. And this way you don't have to... I think it's okay to have Rhea kind of be dominant against, people like JD and Dom. But, you wouldn't want anybody to take a rough shot on them unless it's Dom trying to get an attack on one and it just doesn't have any effect. So, you kind of almost would have maybe Damian and Finn start. And then Dom is the next out for the Judgment Day. And then you can have Rhea come in, and we all want Rhea to just obliviate Dom. Then you can bring in Liv Morgan. And we're off and running now. Now we can have that. And then all of a sudden, that's where, your counterpart for Damian Priest comes in. And, okay, now it's even. Okay, Raquel comes in, Charlotte comes in, JD comes in, and then the other guy comes in for that team. Boom. And you don't have to split the, you now can split both women and men with each other. You don't have to have that, but you can still have your Rhea getting her stuff in on people that help make her look like the powerhouse that she is. I know, just a thought, but then I also thought, hey, this could be a great idea for Stephanie Vacker to kind of come in. What a way for Stephanie Vacker to be introduced. Right? It could be like Liv Morgan's bodyguard instead. Rhea could then bring in Raquel Rodriguez. They've always wanted a team. We could always go that route as well. But yeah, let me know in the comments. You can always come and check back on all platforms. You can rewatch this on YouTube, and you can comment on there. You can even leave comments on Spotify, as we all know that every time I do a live show, which is on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, I then upload it to Spotify right after, and we can see the Chris Perish podcast on Spotify. So make sure you check out Spotify. You subscribe to that, and you give it a like. You leave some comments. Also, a big announcement that I want to make is that with the insane rise of my Instagram, I cannot explain it. I can just say thank you to everyone. I now have the ability to use that as an additional platform for the Chris Perish podcast. So I am going to try to have the Chris Perish podcast on Instagram moving forward as well, to add to the Facebook, the Twitch, and the YouTube. So stay tuned to all my platforms, to all my social links, to my link tree at linktr.ee/Chris Perish and to just stay alert to everything that is the Chris Perish podcast. And hopefully we can get 4 platforms on this podcast moving forward. Another way to enjoy the Chris Perish podcast, well, I guess it would be 5, as Spotify would be a 4th as well. So giving you a mouthful of options to enjoy the Chris Perish podcast. Let me know what else I could do to help grow this podcast, to help make this podcast a better show for you. I am working on updated graphics, updated presentation as we speak. So by the time the Chris Perish podcast hits 1 year, we will do that. I want to say thank you. I want to say I appreciate you. But I also want to say I'm going to inform you. Because as you saw at the beginning of this, you saw a video that showcased all the shows that you saw on Turnbuckle Studios throughout the week. And I'm going to play that once again before I say farewell. And that is everything that you can see. We have Bobby coming in saying, hello, guys. Hope you have a great day today, Chris Perish. Yes, I am having a great day. I hope you do as well. It is a football Sunday. I'm excited to see my good old New Orleans Saints play. But also we had a lot to talk about, Bobby. Hopefully you can go back and check the entirety of this episode if you haven't seen it, or if you are coming in late. But if you have, awesome. But we did talk about the Motor City Machine Guns being rumored to be joining WWE. We talked about Raw going down to 2 hours for the remainder of the year before it goes to Netflix. You are having a great day. That is amazing to hear, and I'm happy to hear that as well. We did talk about some Def Rebel and how they are packing up the musical instruments and taking their talents elsewhere. I also gave a rundown on predictions of who I think all WWE championships are going to go from and towards. So, in layman's terms, who's going to beat who for their titles? I also am going to be logging off, but I also am going to make sure I raid out to someone, and I'm going to raid out to JPJ Gaming. JPJ loves gaming, so anybody watching on the Twitch side of things, make sure you're checking out JPJ Love Gaming from the Love Wrestling, playing some Madden 25. So, yeah, I will be rating him now. Everybody who is watching the Chris Perish podcast on other platforms, thank you. I appreciate you. Have a great Sunday. And remember, go Saints.
Rip through the clouds, faster, catch us from falling